Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Ari, and today we're going to have some more stories about our toxic life. But before we start, it would be so much appreciated if you would subscribe to my channel, like the video, if you enjoy it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now without further ado, let's go. Today's first story. In this story, Obi began dating his partner in September 2018, and they applied for a de facto spouse visa in 2020. Their relationship faced challenges after moving out due to clashes with his mom. Despite his partner's independence, he struggled with household chores and focused on learning to invest. In 2022, their relationship deteriorated due to his neglect of housework, leading to intimacy issues. Eventually, he discovered his partner's infidelity in September 2022, prompting a breakup. The split has implications for her visa, with uncertainties about her permanent residency. Now let's get into the story. We started dating in September 2018 on my birthday, so that day has always been extra special to me. My partner does roster work. She works 8 days on a mine site and is back 6 days off. I work a decent 9-to-5 job, so we are both pretty well off. She's also an international resident, so I decided to help her get her visa to stay. We applied for the de facto spouse visa at the end of 2020. For the first 3.5 years, our relationship was really good. We both loved each other and were doing so much together. Unfortunately, some clashes between her and my mom led to us moving out and renting a place for 6 months. She knew how to do everything. She's extremely independent, so she knew how to take care of a house and cooked really good food. I, on the other hand, was a bit of a dropkick and didn't know how to do any of that properly. My mom looked after me a bit too much, which handicapped me a lot when I moved out. Whilst I was working every day and being very smart with our money, we never had any money problems. I was also a bit selfish as a 23-year-old who tended to spend a bit too much time at the computer and away from household chores. I did make sure I spent some time with her, though we watched some good shows like Game of Thrones, Money, Heist, and Merlin. I did, however, clean enough to ensure we got 100% of our bond money back. I did all the de-weeding by hand. After our 6-month lease was finally up, we bought a place together. This was around September 2021. She started her mining job around December 2021, and I, still being a dropkick, didn't do much of the housework, although I did learn to cook some dishes, as I needed to make sure I kept myself fed while she was on site. But I still didn't do the laundry or vacuum and mop the floor because my standard of cleanliness was so much different from hers. Instead, I spent my time learning how to invest because she told me she wanted to make a lot of money. I designed an investment plan just to suit her. I enjoyed investing a lot, cleaning not so much in April of 2022, and she broke down in our bedroom at my lack of help around the house. She told me she was stressed with having to come back and do all the housework after 8 long days on the mine site. At that stage, I finally woke up and became the adult I should have become long ago. I started vacuuming and mopping the whole house once a fortnight and doing the laundry every week, making sure she had an empty basket to work with. When she came back, it was like a switch was flicked on in my head. I should also mention that intimacy was non-existent in the last year of our relationship. She didn't want to take the pill due to side effects, although she was on it periodically for the first 3 years and we had intimate. Then I went to buy a pack of condoms. But then she went and hid the condoms when we were about to have intimate. So I just refused to have intimate with her because I didn't want to have unprotected intimate and risk pregnancy. She even suggested that I take the male version of the pill that would make my sperm infertile or something. I don't even know what she was on about there. I kept up my routine, making my own lunches and maintaining the house while she was away. I finally became an adult that could survive on my own. But the relationship didn't seem to improve slowly over time. She stopped cooking for me and didn't like me touching her in bed. She also gave me her cheek for kisses instead of her lips looking back. These were all red flags. But I was blinded by love and my desperation to save the relationship. I kept up with the cleaning and maintenance. She even went back on the pill to balance her hormones, or so she claimed. I tried initiating intimacy with her again at that point, but she refused. And then came September 17, 2022. I was mopping the floor in my computer room and couldn't use it because the floor was wet. I went to use her laptop instead and saw everything in Messenger. She had been in a casual but intimate relationship with a man on the mind side a little younger than me. The text messages were extremely explicit. I saw they had this going on since late July. I couldn't go any further back because I was about to throw up. I confronted her about it that night, and she told me she had been extremely stressed with work and had fallen out of love. I didn't understand. She loved me when I was a total tropic. Then all of a sudden I became this mature and capable adult, but she didn't love me anymore. I was a total wreck for the next week and couldn't sleep well. I decided to call things off with her. I cannot be with someone who commits infidelity. We are going to split up our assets and go our separate ways. She told me she wants to remain friends, but I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. Nor do I think that's a good idea for either of us. This also has implications for her visa. She is currently on her temporary visa until the end of November this year, at which point we were supposed to sign off on some documents so she could get her permanent residency. I told her I refused to sign any documentation as I basically would have to lie, which could get me sent to jail along with a big fine. She may still be able to get her permanent residency if the department decides to award it to her. But she is at a much greater risk of having to go back to a student visa, which means she will lose her mining job along with her life savings of having to enroll in some course she doesn't want to complete and pay international student fees, which are bloody expensive along with wasting years of her life just to progress her spouse visa. All for nothing. Today's second story. In this story, Opie's marriage ends in turmoil when he discovers his wife's affair with his own father. The revelation prompts a violent confrontation at a hotel, leading to divorce. The man and his supportive mother remodel their homes to live together. The wife and father face consequences, and the man finds solace in his passion for music, experiencing personal growth and newfound happiness. Despite his ex-wife's attempts at reconciliation, he focuses on moving forward and achieving success in his musical career. Now let's get into the story. My father warned me before my wedding that he believed my fiancée would cheat on me if presented with an opportunity. I hated that he told me this. I never had a good relationship with my father, and I believed he was jealous that my fiancée was prettier than my mom and really in love with me. I didn't plan on having a close relationship with him during my married life. My mom was different. I could tell her anything and she was really supportive. I almost felt bad she was still married to my asshole of a father. I went through with the marriage because my woman never gave me something to worry about. We were married for 7 years, living an hour and a half away from my parents that entire time before more than one marriage came to an abrupt end. My wife had a job 30 minutes away in the direction of my parents' house. She started to become condescending and rude to me in February of that year. Eventually, I felt like the less I said, the better. So we just started watching movies or shows together when she was home from work. I worked from home writing and recording music there. When I first started getting gigs, my wife was really supportive and came to my shows. After a few years, she got bored with it. I think she wished for me to become rich and famous. My wife continued disrespecting me and getting snappy until she told me she needed to start working late. Sometimes I didn't believe that was the case. I waited in my car in her work parking lot. When she left at the usual time, she drove the opposite direction of work. I followed her all the way to my parents' house. I turned off my car lights way down the road and just inched closer along the curb up. I saw my dad get in the car with her before she drove away was all I could think as I followed them at a long distance. I called my mom as I drove. She was out to dinner with a group of old friends. She asked me if anything was wrong and if she needed to come home, and I told her no. I said she could call me tomorrow. I didn't want to tell her what was happening. They pulled into a shopping center suddenly, and I think it was because they suspected they were being followed. I continued on pulling into a neighborhood shortly ahead. I could see through the trees the moment my wife's car pulled out. They literally drove down the street to a hotel. I parked my car next to hers. This couldn't be happening. Did she drive my dad to a hotel? How was I supposed to get through something like this? How was my mom supposed to get through this? It was so unfair. After this, I was going to move out of state. My wife and father came out of the hotel an hour later. I was waiting by my wife's car, and she freaked out when she saw me. My dad had a strange demeanor. I then decided to walk up to him and punched him in the face. He fell down, and a hotel employee saw this. They called the police. My wife was already crying. She couldn't believe I was there. I think because I was there, she was more abruptly hit with the reality of what she'd done. She cried really hard, telling me she was sorry. Repeatedly, I screamed some choice words at her while my dad got to his feet. I told him he was a horrible father, and the only reason my wife slept with him was that he convinced her to. I told him he was dead to me. I looked at my wife and called her a worthless harlot. I told her I would never see her again. After our divorce was final, she reached out for me with tears streaming down her face like she needed a forgiving embrace. I pushed her away, and she started crying even more. I got in my car to leave, but the police showed up. I told them everything that happened, and my dad, surprisingly, didn't press charges against me for punching him. My wife apparently felt some remorse because she refused to give my dad a ride home. The police had to. I found out the next morning that he told my mom he was mugged while on a walk. I ignored all the calls and texts from my wife. She apparently slept in the hotel parking lot in her car since I told her she wasn't welcome in my house anymore. My mom called me the next morning, which is when she told me about the mugging. As hard as it was, I told her what happened the night before. At first, she didn't believe me, but then it made more sense to her, and she knew I wouldn't lie about this. She wasn't as upset as I thought. She was more apologetic to me because it was my wife. She said she hadn't been very happy in the relationship for a while now, and this was a good time to end it. I was relieved we could support each other through the divorce process. My mom moved in with me, and my wife moved in with my dad. She only stayed there for 1 week, though my dad said she wasn't worth keeping around. Due to the infidelity in the police report that recorded the 3 of us at the hotel, my mom and I each got to keep our houses. My dad moved into a motel. My mom's house was built in such a way that it could easily be transformed into 2 independent living spaces. I used the money from selling my house to remodel my mom's house so I could live with her. She loved this idea. We each had our own front door, but we lived in the same place. We kept each other company and gave each other support. My wife moved out of state instead of me. She apparently had a distant cousin to live with in Philadelphia. My ex tried apologizing and asking me if we could move on from it. Even after the divorce, she had a hard time accepting we were over, and she told me she missed me every day. I'm sorry, but cheating on me with my father is unforgivable. She didn't deserve to have anyone trust her again. As soon as she got a new boyfriend, I took the liberty of sharing with him through social media what my ex did to me. At first, he didn't believe me, but he broke up with her. A month later, my ex called me, crying and yelling at me. I told her I didn't do anything wrong. If anything, I spared him heartbreak. She said she wouldn't do that ever again, and I asked her what made her do it to me. She said she didn't know, but my dad talked to her about how I never grew up to be a man and she could be loved better. I haven't spoken to my dad since that day. I don't know where he is or what happened to him. My mom hasn't spoken to him either, but we're there for each other. We each found a new person to start dating, so that's cool. I don't respond or answer her calls from my ex anymore, and I won't barge into her dating life again. I realized I have to move on, and if I'm speaking with every new partner she has, I'm not moving on very well. I've actually gotten more gigs and income from my music since this happened. It's the thing I enjoy the most in life, and the fact that I can pursue this dream makes me a very happy man.